Greetings. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching as I share with you a new face mask template that I have created after watching a gazillion different videos. This is Lela from Miss Lela Pink Journey, and I did a bunch of measurements and different sizes, and I kind of combined a few ideas from other videos, and I developed my own little template. And it's very familiar to a few of the other templates that I've seen online, but this one worked perfectly for me. After many different cuts and many different measurements, this is the one that I came up with. I needed something that would work well with sublimation prints, and this is going to be perfect for fabric and sublimation prints. So I could use the rotary cutter to cut this actual fabric, but today I'm going to grab my scissors and cut it. I could use the long portion of the template to cut the fabric, but I actually took a fold in half of this template, and that's what I'm going to use to cut my fabric. So I fold my fabric together. I have the two good sides facing each other, and this way I can cut a bunch at one time. I can actually cut more than this, but I just wanted to give a good quick overview of how I do mine. So again, I have this long template folded in half. Actually just cut it in half. And I'm going to take that shorter version of the long template and just push it right up against the edge of the fabric there. Make sure it's lined up good. I'll put a few clips in there to hold it down. And this way I can do one cut and done instead of 3 or 4 cuts. That's better and just simplifies the process for me. Again, I could use the rotary cutter here, but I'm going to use my trusty scissors. Smooth it out real good and make sure I have all the fabric in there. I have the right sides facing each other. I just fold it in half, and this way I'll have one cut that will look like my full template. So I'll grab my chalk marker, which makes it much easier to go ahead and outline the entire template that I want to cut from. I want to make sure I get the bottom piece good because there's a little curved edge at the bottom. We have that curved divot at the top that I like better. I had to measure it out really good to fit my face well, and we've tried this with several other people and it fit pretty good, so we'll stick to this pattern. So now that I've outlined it well, I'll put clips back in here so I can hold the fabric down so it doesn't move around. And then I will go ahead and cut out the fabric. All around the edges. Take my time a little bit here. I'm actually going to make me a quick little head piece to go with this fabric. This is a mask for me, but I also have this listed in my shop. So now that I have cut that fabric, I can open this up and it'll look just like my longer template. See, there you go. But this way it was one cut and it was easier and it matches that. So now I'll grab the fabric and I'm going to sew right along that little curved divot at the top. Fold it in to face each other. The pretty side of the fabrics are facing each other. So I'm actually going to cut another fabric today also for another face mask. This is a really pretty fabric that I picked up from Joann's. It's like a one of a kind or specially made for Joann's. I can't remember which one, but I really like this fabric. It's really pretty. So here I show you how I cut it out on the full pattern. And you know, I'm new to sewing and I've watched a lot of videos that I get a little confused about, so I'm trying to show you how I do it as a newbie. Of course, I have my chalk and I'm just outlining the full pattern here. I want to get all the curves to make sure I cut them correctly so I can get a good fit. That would have been the half mark there that I'm showing you. So I'm going all the way down and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I grab all of the outline for this fabric that I'm going to cut. I have the liner piece and I have the front piece. I'm also going to add interfacing to this one. Now see, if it was a sublimation print, it'd be full print right there. And that's what I like about this actual pattern that I'm going to start using. So I will cut this out real quick around all of the edges. Cut this, I am going to grab the fabric and I'm going to fold it facing into each other. Fold it in half and I'm going to make sure the little peaks are lining up nice and neat. I'm going to sew right around that curved edge or divot. There you go, lining up nice and neat. Yep, I'm going to sew right across that edge. Just that portion right there is where I'm going to sew on each of them, on the outside and on the lining. Also have this interfacing that I'm going to place right on my top sheet of my fabric. So now I'm going to grab my front fabric and I'm going to fold it into each other. And I am going to sew right across the top portion, right there across that little divot. Back stitch and a forward stitch, and then I will seal it off with a back stitch at the end. So I will cut off all of the different loose threads. And then what I'll do is I'll take a pair of pinking shears. Some people, they take, they do little divots in the fabric up to that point, up into the thread. And that's fine too. But first of all, I'm going to cut off that little tip, just so it won't be so bulky. Still have a little thread there. Cut that tip. But since I have pinking shears, I'm going to go ahead and use my shears to cut right across and take some of the bulk off without cutting into my thread as much as possible. All right. Now I'm going to grab the portion that I've already sewn the top pieces of. I am going to place them together facing each other, and I'm going to make sure that the actual tops, the peaks, are lined up together nice and neat. I want the top and the bottom to line up together perfectly, as perfect as possible. I'll use clips to clip them together. I want to make sure that I have them together so that I can sew across the top and across the bottom of this pattern. So now that I have sewn all around the edges, top and bottom of the mask, I'm going to flip it inside out. I'm going to use my fingers to get the edges kind of smooth out, and also have a little chopstick thingy that I keep in the office that I use to kind of poke the edges out without tearing through what I've sewn. So I use this to actually help with smoothing out the edges somewhat before I take it to the iron to iron it down and smooth it out. So see, I'm using my fingers to smooth it out a little more, as much as possible. Now it's looking more like a mask. I'm not too crazy about ironing directly on top of items because I'm used to sublimation prints, and I know I don't want to iron on those. So I kind of grab parchment paper or butcher paper or copy paper, whatever I have around, and I mostly use that as a barrier to do a lot of my ironing. So I am smoothing out the edges with the iron. That little iron is really powerful. I'm going to leave a link down in the description box for it. It's really a good little iron, and it's nice and handy to keep around. So I'm making sure everything is lining up here, knocking out the wrinkles, smoothing it out. Makes it look so much more professional once you iron it out well. So it's all lined up. I love that color. I really love the color of that mask. So I'm going to grab my scissors and just clean those edges up a little bit. Make it even. Just a little bit of the edge just to even it off. I don't want to make the mask short at all, so I'm careful with how much I cut off. Just nice. So here I'm just going to create a casing so that I can add these elastic ties for the ears or ear loops. I'm going to use a straight stitch and stitch right as close to the edge as possible, making sure I leave enough room, plenty of room, so that I can insert those elastic strips on each side of the mask. Thanks for taking time out to watch towards the end of the video. I'm going to have a link to the template in the description box. Please stay safe, and I would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.